Let's just jump right into this explainer because we are looking at one of the most fascinating stories in international football right now. We're breaking down how Ecuador's national team, affectionately known as La Tri, has quietly built themselves into an absolutely terrifying dark horse contender for the 2026 World Cup. For decades, they flew totally under the global radar, but recently, well, they've assembled a squad with some genuine elite European pedigree. To really understand why this team demands your respect right out of the gate, look at this staggering number, 5. Just 5. That is the minuscule number of goals they conceded in 18 brutal South American qualifying matches. Now put that into perspective for a second. The CONMEBOL region means playing against absolute giants like Brazil, Argentina, Uruguay, and Colombia. To survive an 18-match gauntlet against those attackers and only pick the ball out of your net 5 times? That isn't just a good defensive record. That is a historic masterclass. All right, Section 1, the rise of La Tri. Let's take a quick look at how a nation that used to be on the periphery of South American football built this kind of unstoppable momentum.
So, their World Cup history is actually pretty brief, but man, it escalates quickly. They only made their first ever appearance back in 2002. Their peak came in 2006 when they reached the round of 16, ultimately falling to that iconic David Beckham free kick for England. Fast forward past a really tough, agonizing group stage exit in 2014, and we hit 2022. That's where Captain Enner Valencia completely stole the show, dramatically scoring the opening goal of the entire tournament against Qatar. You can clearly see the upward trajectory here. Now, a massive part of their story has always been altitude. Historically, La Tri relied heavily on their home stadium in Quito, which sits an incredible 2,815 meters above sea level, to literally suffocate visiting teams. Opposing players just didn't have the lungs for the thin air. But here is the real game changer. This current squad, the so-called Golden Generation, has totally flipped the script. They finished second in their qualifying group, beating out both Brazil and Uruguay, proving they can absolutely dominate world-class opposition at sea level too. Moving on to Section 2, Becassese's tactical machine. Let's talk about the mastermind on the touchline pulling the strings. Head coach Sebastian Becasese brings this rock-star, high-voltage intensity to the job. He used to be the assistant to Jorge Sampaoli, meaning his tactical DNA is heavily influenced by the legendary Marcelo Bielsa. But here's where Becasese is actually brilliant. While Bielsa is famous for that non-stop, chaotic high press, Becasese looked at his players and adapted. He got pragmatic. He organized Ecuador into an incredibly disciplined, practically unbreakable 4-4-2 formation. And the foundation of that 4-4-2 is the low block. Instead of pressing high up the pitch and leaving themselves vulnerable, Ecuador sits in 2 tightly organized, compact lines of 4, deep in their own half. This chokes out all the space in the middle and forces opponents out wide, where Ecuador's incredible athleticism can just clean up the mess. I mean, this disciplined setup is the exact reason they kept an astounding 13 clean sheets during qualifying.
It's honestly like watching a trap spring shut. Step 1, sit tight in that compact shape. Step 2, wait patiently until the opponent makes a slight error, like a center back taking a heavy touch, and trigger a fierce mid-block press. Step 3, win the ball and instantly launch a clinical, high-speed counterattack. They are totally fine without dominating possession because they just wait for you to make a mistake.
Which brings us perfectly to Section 3, the Golden Generation. Because look, a demanding tactical system like this only works if you have the world-class personnel to execute it. Just look at the clubs these defenders play for. This isn't just a solid backline. It's easily one of the top 5 most talented defenses in the entire tournament. You've got 23-year-old Willian Pacho, a Champions League winner with PSG, anchoring the middle alongside Arsenal's Piero Hincapié. Then you throw in AC Milan's Pervis Estupiñán and Club Brugge's Joel Ordóñez. That is a literal wall of players who lock down the best attackers in Europe on a weekly basis. And sitting right in front of that defensive wall is this guy, Chelsea's Moisés Caicedo. A £115 million transfer fee does not lie. He is the absolute engine of this team. Caicedo is an irreplaceable, world-class destroyer who intercepts danger, dictates the tempo, and literally carries their transition play on his shoulders. When he's on the pitch, Ecuador is rock solid. When he isn't, it's a totally different team. He's absolutely crucial. Now, to be totally fair and impartial in our explainer, we need to talk about their flaws. Section 4, the attacking Achilles heel. There's this crazy, dramatic tension running through the squad. On one hand, you have a Champions League caliber defense that simply refuses to let goals in. But on the exact opposite side of the pitch, they have a surprisingly thin, vulnerable attack.
Because they commit so much energy to that defensive solidity, they often struggle to break down opposing teams, winding up in these gritty, low-scoring dogfights. And the root of the problem is pretty specific. Their ultimate Achilles heel is relying way too much on their captain, Enner Valencia, to score. He's a national hero for sure, but the guy is 36 years old. That's a massive burden. Meanwhile, their primary creative spark, 18-year-old wonder kid Kendry Páez, comes with huge question marks because he isn't getting consistent minutes on loan at River Plate. Plus, you've got lingering doubts in the net, with keepers like Hernan Galíndez and Gonzalo Plata lacking that top-tier European experience. Okay, Section 5, breaking down Group E. Knowing their strengths and their weaknesses, let's look at exactly what they're up against in the group stage. The FIFA rankings here give us a really clear picture. Germany, sitting at 10th, is the obvious heavyweight favorite to comfortably win the group. Curacao at 82nd are the heavy underdogs. So what does that mean? It sets up an absolute blockbuster, do-or-die collision between 23rd ranked Ecuador and 34th ranked Ivory Coast for that vital second-place spot. So Lottery's roadmap to the knockouts is actually super clear. 1, they absolutely have to secure all 3 points against Curacao with zero drama. 2, they must leverage that elite defense to outgrind a very physical, very talented Ivory Coast squad. And 3, if they can deploy that compact low block to frustrate Germany's elite attackers, they might just scrape a highly valuable point. Because that path is so well defined, analysts are feeling really confident about them. They're actually giving Ecuador a 70% chance of surviving Group E. Why? Because their defensive floor is just too ridiculously high. Even if their attack completely sputters out, teams like Ivory Coast and Curacao are going to find it almost impossible to break through a backline featuring Pacho and Hincapié. And that right there is exactly why the rest of the world is nervous about them. In tournament football, being impossible to score against is essentially a superpower. They are custom built to drag absolute giants into the deep water, frustrate them for 120 minutes, and force coin toss penalty shootouts in the round of 16 or quarterfinals. They are the ultimate dark horse. So I'll leave you with this final thought. We already know their defense is virtually impenetrable. We know Moisés Caicedo is going to boss the midfield. But if their young attackers, particularly Kendry Páez, can find just one spark of magic in a tight knockout game, exactly how deep can this golden generation actually go? I don't know about you, but I cannot wait to find out.